you know, I just lay out I lay out the numbers, and I lay out the project timeline, and I just kind of lay out the profit potential. For me, I kind of think that this might be more repeatable, and I'm really trying to evaluate it as how much of my time do I want to dedicate to this? Because if the returns are similar to this, or what I'm kind of eyeing, this is something that I can see myself doing more on the long term. So I would just say, like, looking at this timeline, you can kind of see, like, this started all the way back in April. So essentially, I was scrolling through Twitter, and I saw the Chicago Urban League send out a invite about learning about the Chicago Land Bank. I hop onto this call. I'm at the gym. I start hearing prices and what they're talking about. I'm like, there's no way this is actually real. So I go on there, and it's basically a Zillow with a whole bunch of properties on there, distressed properties in neighborhoods that they want to actually rejuvenate, right? What they're doing is they got this agency called the Chicago Land Bank that goes to these tax lien sales, and they also go through like vacant like properties that are seized by the city, and they go through those batches of properties and they say, which of these do we want to purchase? And they purchase them, and then they allow for you to purchase them from them. So they might have bought it for like $5K, and for example, I bought mine for $40K. And mine was like a single family home. It wasn't crazy distressed. I mean, definitely needed to be updated and all that stuff. You knew it was going to be a gut rehab, but it was in a good location, and it allowed for me to have enough margin to get it back up to speed. And when you apply, you go on the site, you pick the property that you actually want to visit. They give you an access code to visit the property. And then you can go in there and actually kind of see if it's something that you could work with. And once you do that, you apply. In the application, it's a few things they ask. One, are you a Chicago resident? And then they ask if you have the funds, and you have to prove that you have the funds to kind of fund this project. Now, that could be in the form of a 401k. That could be in different forms. It could be in the form of equity in your crib, right? You just kind of show that you have the money to be able to take care of this, right? And then they ask you additional questions like, what other experience do you have? I used my experience with the Columbus property, and I was awarded the property in about May. And at that point in time, that's when you start to put together your statement of work. Now, your statement of work really is like the first thing that you need to get done, because they actually ask for the statement of work during the application project process as well. They're like, okay, well, what are you actually going to do to it? So for me, I had to go through, go ahead.
Do you have this as a template, or do they provide a template for you? How do you put this together on the spreadsheet?
I mean, luckily, when I did it for the one in Columbus, I just used the same kind of budget that I used there, right? So I'm like, okay, let me just repurpose this budget I have. I know what it looks like, and let me just, let's get it going easy. So this is about what the full project looks like, and I'll just do the left-hand side and all this stuff, because I try to keep myself honest and put the cost after I get it. But with me, I went through the crib, and I'm like, okay, you're going to need architectural drawings, an inspection, a land survey, and then there's a cost for demolition, which I was completely off with that. I didn't realize how much it was going to cost. It cost a lot more. The trash can was like $500, and then I had to get another one, and then I had to get another one. So I'm all the way up to like actual was like 17 for the demolition, truck removal, people like that. So, and they just continued to kind of had to add projects. I had to remove that big structure from the back. I didn't have that. Tree removal, that was something that I didn't think about before. But framing, there's a cost to doing that. Electrical, these are hard costs because they came from the subcontractor. HVAC, plumbing, all of these people were a part of the permit. So I'll kind of talk about the permit process as well. And then I'm kind of thinking about how much it will cost to get these materials, lighting, windows, each bathroom, the mason, this is a hard cost, right? And then I get all the way to the bottom of shower head, and I'm trying to think about everything that's going to be a cost. Like, you have to be a cost accountant. 5 gallons of paint, sink, faucet, vinyl flooring, materials, all of this, roofing, right? Stainless steel kitchen appliances, right? Bags and trimming.
Were these quotes, or did you go on, the Home Depot and say, yo, like 1,400 square foot property, how much would it cost for me to get drywall? Like, how did you source the comps that you used to put in here?
Some of these I was just kind of eyeballing them from my experience working at the crib, So I'm like, a toilet is gonna cost you like $150. I got 2 of them, you know what I mean? Fixtures. In my head, I'm kind of eyeballing these. Now, to your point, I can get to the end of the line and it's like, damn, vanity, you know what I mean? 400. And if I'm off by too much on each of these, then at the end of the day, it's
a lot of surplus.
It's gonna run it up.
Yeah.
Now, I'm already realizing that this 123 number, and this is just the cost, the all-in cost to get this property back up to speed. This will probably end up being closer to like 130, right? But now I'm trying to find different ways to like get money back from this deal. And I'll kind of talk about some of the ways I'm gonna try to do that. But that's basically what I'm looking at. I'm looking at this number, and then I put together kind of like a run of show. Of like how these things should kind of like get done, right? These are the different things. Now, I'm off on these, right? But I had a plan going into it. And that's the most important thing. At least you could see that you off. You know what I mean? Now I'm tracking every week. I'm like, okay, actuals, and I'm looking at the difference and stuff like that. Some of it was cheaper. You know what I mean? And now I'm at this piece, and I'm gonna kind of go back to the timeline. And we'll kind of talk like, essentially at this point, I'm just trying to manage the budget. So let me share.
Question.
Go ahead.
How does the permit process factor into that statement of work? Is that prior to, simultaneous, or something?
Yeah, so you go in, and actually to apply for any property from the Chicago Land Bank, you gotta have a statement of work done. That's one thing that you'll submit with the application, because they looking at it like, okay, well, what you gonna do to this property? You gonna get it up to speed and this thing gonna look nice, or you just trying to,
right?
You know what I mean?
So is that Excel sheet what you submitted, or did you PDF it? Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah.
Because you're being rewarded this property, right? There's other people that are also competing for the same property. Could be 20, 30 people competing for the same property.
Right.
So from the event that I attended the other week, you wanna put your best leg forward. You're essentially, it's an RFP. You're essentially like, putting your best foot forward so they can award you the property. And then there's literally a criteria that they're following to award property. So the first thing is Chicago resident. If you're not a Chicago resident, you can't get a property, or a Cook County resident. And then from there is it's what you plan to do with the property. So they're gonna have more. What's the word I'm looking for? They're gonna put more favor towards somebody who wants to live in a home than an investor. Most of these are investment properties, but some people are actually buying these. So if you looking for a property to buy from a home buyer, you're gonna have more leverage than somebody that's coming in to invest in the property. And then like putting your full statement of work together. You don't necessarily, I mean, you may have to, let me not say you don't have to, but you can just put like a few things on the Excel spreadsheet, but then again, that's gonna cost you if there's other people that have more detail in their approach, because what they want to do at the end of the day, the land bank is in place to put a better, to make the neighborhoods better, right? On the south and west side of Chicago.
That's their goal.
It's not money. It's not money. Their first way that they know that they can make a neighborhood better is by having new homeowners that care about that neighborhood, right? Secondly is to have investors that care about that neighborhood. But all of these properties that you'll see, whether they're lots, you'll see commercial spaces, you'll see residential, all of them are not depreciated, that's not the right word I'm looking for, but
underinvested.
Not even underinvested, but they all have tax liens on them. So they've all went through the process of of 3 years on auction for somebody to be able to get the property. After the 3 years, Cook County Land Bank was put in place to then be able to gobble up these properties that were sitting on auction for 10 plus years because they had more taxes than they were worth. They owed more taxes than they were worth. So they'll go in, they'll clear the taxes, and then they'll sell it. And then they'll somewhat maintain the property to until somebody can come in and purchase it.
Honestly, I'm glad you went to that session. That was some of the backstory. I was wondering how they got it for so cheap.
For sure.
Because they selling it to me for 40.
100%. Because the Cook County is a government agency. Cook County Land Bank is a government agency. They're working, because I was wondering the same thing. Their thing is, this property does the county no good by just sitting there because ain't nobody paying them taxes, right? So they'll rather clear the taxes and then offer it up to sell so they can now start to recoup the tax money on the property. So that's their whole strategy behind it. And you'll see that it's only focused in certain neighborhoods. Why? Because there ain't no land bank needed in Lincoln Park. If there's a tax property, somebody's purchasing it because the numbers make sense. But in Austin, if there's $40,000 that you got to pay before you even get the property, you got to pay $40,000 in taxes. That doesn't make sense. It's just not good business. Nobody's gonna do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nah, that's
quick question.
Hey,
that was good. So are you saying it's a land bank or the organization, they cover the tax bill and then the cost that we're paying is maybe essentially what they estimate some of the cost of the actual asset is now, post being vacated from the person who's lost it plus the tax bill? I was just trying to say.
So you'll own it outright. They'll clear the taxes. So since it's a government agency, they're essentially because if you were to go to auction, because every other year they have an auction, you can go to that auction. But if you were to get a property at auction, you're gonna have to pay the taxes on it. So there could be $30,000 in taxes. There could be liens on the property from somebody that let's say somebody did some work there years ago and they got a lien on the property. You got to take care of all that because you now are the owner of the deed. And the person that owns when you put a lien on a property, you don't really put a lien on a person. You put a lien on the deed. So that's why if you were to sell a property, you have a lien on it. That means that you got to clear that lien in order, because they have first right to that money.
Right.
You feel me? So you got to clear that lien in order for you to then be able to sell your house and recoup payment for it. So to answer your question, you don't have to pay anything. They clear everything off the property and you own it outright when you pay the $20,000, the $30,000, or $40,000.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's dope. So I was thinking about the auction version of this. So this is actually a cleaner transaction, really.
Yeah. So exactly. So this is this is what makes it more advantageous than going through the auction process.
Oh, okay, cool. That was what was limiting me, because I was like, this auction thing, there's so much pushback. You can pay the taxes, but then if the actual owner somehow comes out of nowhere, pays it, they can take it back from you.
Right.
It's a lot of red tape where it's this is not even worth the process.
Right.
The auction process is real murky, bro. And there's if it's a real good property, there's businesses that do this. If there's a property that's can be valuable, somebody's copying that property, you know. And then another thing with the auction process, they just list deed numbers. So you go to auction and it'll just be some numbers. You gotta go look at the property. You have to go search and do all your research on its own.
Right.
To Larry's point, if you go on the website, on the Cook County Land Bank website, it's like Zillow. You just literally you literally have a map, and then boom, you see a property. So they make it very easy because their goal is to revitalize the community, and they want to make it as seamless as possible.
Yeah.
So do you have to commit to purchasing the property prior to? That's probably a question for Larry. I didn't know if you got to walk through it, or was it kind of just you buy it as?
Oh yeah, no, I was walking through it. Yeah, I was in there. So I mean, you get the entry code, and then they let you go in and take a look at all these properties. So before I even put in an offer, I was able to look at a whole bunch of different properties, and I was looking at some of them I didn't even want to touch. They just wasn't. I wasn't gonna be able to do nothing with them, you know. But yeah, so you go through and you get to look at all of them, man. Yeah. You get an access code. You walk right in, take a look at it. I was taking pictures in probably like 4 different properties. So, and I could just show you. So, I mean, this is basically what I walked into. How do you share?
Is it residential property only?
No, they have commercial properties, and they also have like lots.
Okay.
Yeah,
So this is
all on the south and west side. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm looking. I walked in and I saw this. You know what I mean? So you gotta walk in with a vision. You know, you ain't just the pictures I be posting now on Instagram when you see it all opened up and everything. That's cool. But this is a different ball game when you really in there and you like really just kind of looking at it like this.
Distressed.
It's a distressed property. You know what I mean?
And that's good to call out, right? Because it's not, this ain't no put some, paint on it, and turn it around and flip. This is it's, you gotta definitely understand you going into a process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you just gotta be wary of it and like come in there with like, I personally think on rehabs of this scale, you gotta come in there with some sort of professional that can really give you a good like understanding of what you're in for, because these are most of these properties you're gonna have to take it down to the stud.
Yeah.
So like and then because it's such a big project, you're gonna have to pull permits. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So when you pull those permits, anything that's open, like that's what I got in trouble on my last project. Anything that's open now becomes like subject to the permitter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you want to be very like going in, even like Larry, you added 10% to your estimates, man. 20%.
Right. No,
because shit get ugly, bro. When you open up them walls, because you can even explain the demolition of like how they did the not the drywall, but what they had before with the sticks, like that.
Nah, man. This one was plaster and last. So this is like 1915. Right? It was built in 1915 before drywall was really a thing. So you go in there and you pulling on this stuff, and it's basically these little popsicle sticks. You've probably seen it before, and then they smear the plaster in between it. But when you pulling that stuff out, I mean that's a nasty, ugly job, man. So I was really going to Home Depot. I ordered the dumpsters, and then I went to Home Depot and was just, hey, you just saw a couple, Latinos just waiting there at the end. For the day, we about to demolish this joint. Cause you know what I mean? What I'm about to spend $400 in labor. All right, cool. Let's run through it.
Honest day's work, honest day's pay.
You know what I mean? You looking for a job? I got a job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's some of those like upfront ones. That's all the way down to construction though. Like, I mean,
yeah, that's late.
To your point about like I got awarded it, and the acquisition process. I felt this should have been done like here in August. You know what I mean? The reality is it took so long for them to work through all that stuff you was talking about. They had the last one that took forever was the fact that the water certificate, that it was no more water owed for the utilities, was just taking forever. So it's like an extra 3 weeks, and it's just sitting on somebody's desk.
So what was sitting on somebody's desk?
So you needed to have a full payment certificate from Chicago Water to say that there's no more utilities owed.
You would have to pay that?
Because it would have been this crazy water bill I would have had to pay. You know what I mean? And given the agency status, they can go through and not only clear all the taxes, they clear all the utility bills too.
But you have to ensure that they do that.
They got to ensure that they do that.
If you don't, then
you're not going to be liable for it.
it.
Exactly. And it's called a full payment certificate. You got to get a full payment certificate from your utility companies, right? And that's what held this up towards the end.
What's that called?
It's called a full payment
Do you get
certificate.
that before closing, or do you get that?
Before closing, right. So I wanted to close back at the end of July, right? Because we went in a contract in June. And going under contract is basically saying like, okay, I'm gonna put this $1,000 down. I wanna go into contract. I intend to buy this property, get it ready so I can close. It took them July all the way through August for me to close because they was waiting on this full payment certificate. You know what I mean? Because me,
Did they do any facilitation and helping that, or was that all?
that's nah, bro. I was popping up. I think they got tired of seeing me, so they started to push it through. And I started to send the emails and connect people. I'm like, okay, you need to talk to the person at the water. CC everybody.
Yeah.
What's the worst gonna happen?
That's what you gotta do.
What's the worst gonna happen? Y'all gonna not let me buy it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just pushed on that one, but the permit was happening at the same time, right? So at the same time, I'm lining up subcontractors. You getting costs, and you checking licenses. I think for the permit, the best thing I could tell somebody is to go on the official Chicago website, and if you need a plumber, you need an HVAC person, you need anybody, go see if they license is listed there.
Mm-hmm.
And they got this whole list. It's a big PDF. HVAC, whatever. All the licenses, when they expire and all that, and they number right there. That's the only directory you use. Don't use Yelp. Don't use nothing. Use the official license. You know what I mean?
Because they're all insured.
They all insured. They all licensed. They all, they all good to go.
Could you put that link in there?
On that
You got the
permit
link?
piece.
Mm-hmm.
That permit piece, like when because essentially it's like the land bank is acting as they say, all right, submit your RFP. Like I like how No said that because that's really what's happening. It's like a bid war, who has the best case. Are they looking for you to be like somebody that can pull permits? I mean, does that help your case? I'm assuming maybe that would. They're like, all right, he's already licensed to do that. Or like, how does that process look at? Like they look at the numbers is good, but they're like, all right, he has to pull permits. He has to get somebody to pull permits. Like, is that a thing?
Yeah, I think that's a really good part of to like a thing to think about. I think from them awarding me the property, they didn't think too much about the general contractor license. But once you start to get into permitting, having your general contractor license helps you with all of that stuff.
What's the process on
The process on that is basically you got to start an LLC. You got to register with the state, right? So I started a business called Larry Gordon General GC Services LLC, and that allowed for me to then play the middleman with all of this stuff. I could submit things, I could interact with the city, I could do a lot of these things
that? Instead of paying somebody else to do it.
instead of paying somebody else to do
Because
it.
they're gonna like take everything and add their percentage on top of it.
And put their sauce on it. You know what I mean? Because they got to get paid. Now they a middleman.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
you need a liability.
and liability insurance. That's exactly what you
For how
need.
much?
For my project size, I got it up to 500,000.
Okay, what did that run you?
I'm paying about $90 a month for
That's
it.
not bad.
About $90 a month, and I just had that.
Did you have to take a test?
Nope,
No testing.
no nothing, no test, no nothing. You just gotta get general liability
That's
insurance.
right.
That's a good point, Eddie. Get general liability insurance. Make sure you're good with the state. Your LLC is intact, and then you go through this little process online and you submit it. And about 2 weeks later, they send you your general contractor license.
That's why these GCs are so trash.
Right.
No test.
Hey, no, I thought they had to take some.
No
Jacks.
Dang.
They didn't know what a 2x4 was.
That's
man.
wild.
No test. No test.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I did not know it was that easy.
And honestly, it was one of the things I kind of looked at, and I'm like, the thing is, you about to put your neck out there. If you're gonna be a GC and you're gonna be out here being shitty, you're gonna get sued. You gonna fall into something pretty quick if you ain't doing the things you're supposed to.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's one of them systems where it's like people gonna weed themselves out. You know.
In terms of construction, how is that structured in getting other people on board with demo, framing, et cetera, et cetera? 1099? Are they contractors? Are they other businesses that are selling you a service? How does that work?
Yeah, so the only people that I have that are like subcontractors officially is my mason, my plumbing, my electric, and my HVAC. Because that's required by the city on your permit.
You gotta have a license. They have to, in order to pull those permits, the people that have, they all have to be licensed. So they have to go do those testing.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can't just go to Home Depot and cash some cats to do that work. They gotta be licensed in order for it to pass through permits.
Yeah, and all of them are actually listed on this
The
permit.
permit,
Yeah.
So as a GC, you can't touch HVAC, you can't touch electrical, you can't touch plumbing.
No, I can't touch none of that. Yeah, so they list like all of the people out on the official like permit. So this is like the actual like permit that got like approved, right? Existing structure, and then in the back is the carport. They got like demolition plans, everything that is going to be taken out, like what the new build will look like. So this is like really kind of detailed, and this is really my playbook at this point. This is the blueprint.
Yeah.
You know what I
These are
mean?
the drawings,
And,
right?
and these are architectural drawings. Can you talk us through that process?
Yeah, so like when this thing kind of kicked off, right when I realized I was awarded the process, I'm like, okay, honestly, Nos was like, I'm like, I need an architect. You know what I mean? He put me in touch with an architect, and we got going on the drawings. And he had to go out there and basically take every measurement around the crib. So he was out there for a full day just taking measurements on everything, right? Really kind of just creating like a rendering and he eventually created a 3D rendering of it from all his measurements and stuff. You know what I mean? So those cost me about $6,000 or so, but all of these was necessary to submit the permit, right? For permit. And eventually I was gonna have to get it permitted anyway, so you need an architect to create the drawings so you can submit for the permit. So
What was that timeline?
yeah, that timeline was a lot quicker than actually acquisition of the property. So the permit was pretty smooth. Right when I was like awarded and I got under contract, I'm like, okay, now it's time. You're gonna have to start spending some bread, right? So I ended up getting my architect right around the time I got awarded in May. And I'm kind of giving you like a little bit of run on like how much money I was putting out. Most of this was architectural drawings, permit calls, stuff like that. Some legal stuff that you had to kind of take care of. And then he probably took about 2 weeks or so to get the actual drawing, like maybe about a month to get the drawings done. And then we submitted maybe in mid-July, and it was approved in shortly under a month. So the whole permit process from like the start to the end was maybe 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Which isn't bad, man.
Not bad at all.
What it was during COVID.
Right. And the reality is, like, I went through this like self-service or self-certification thing where they basically have licensed people have the ability to approve permits to kind of relieve some of the capacity from the city. And that actually gave me maybe 2 weeks back. I didn't even need it though because I wasn't closed yet.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, you know, that's a learning thing.
So you're saying normally the permit stuff will happen after you close?
Right.
Gotcha.
Right.
But you went ahead and moved forward with it.
Mhm.
How were you
Start
able
much
to?
younger.
How were you able to get the permits without owning the property?
You basically were still putting the Chicago Land Bank as the current owner of it, you know.
Oh,
and
you were just saying you were the GC.
I was just saying I'm the GC, and I'm saying I'm legally under contract to purchase this,
They
right?
still give you permits. For
Yeah. So like the
I didn't
contract
know.
you sign with them, they basically give you liberty to still go into the property, to still take measurements, to like really kind of serve as the caretaker of this property.
Mhm.
Because they know you got to be able to do things. I got to be able to go look at the plumbing lines. I got to be able to do, you know what I mean? Even under contract.
Mhm.
So that once we went under contract, it was like, okay, you always have to be responsible for locking it up. All of these things, you know what I mean, as well, as part of that contract you go under. But it granted me more rights
Mhm.
to be able to continue with the permit.
Mhm.
Because my ideal is that, go ahead.
The permit piece, that just allows you to work with the city, right? Like
Mhm.
start actually doing demolition, doing that in the city.
Exactly.
Usually won't come give you a ticket, right? That just-
Exactly. Because worst case
Is there
scenario.
anything else outside of the permits that you need to actually start construction, or is
You
that
recommend
pretty
the
much
reason?
like it goes to ticket?
The permit is pretty much all you need. I mean, once I got permit, well, I mean, I needed to close, right? So mine is kind of like upside down. Like I would have loved to close and got permit on the exact same day. That's ideal case scenario, right?
Okay.
Because
We got one more downstairs.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Thanks.
They got the elevator.
Yeah.
yeah, the other piece, and let me kind of get into this a little bit because I think this is actually something that people can get into if they actually want to be able to make a good amount of money. without a lot of money down. And all that stuff usually sounds like too good to be true, but the reality is you could actually do it. What I did here, I like held the bag until like 12,400, right? So if you got $15,000 to invest, what I would do is I would go get it for a really, really good price from somebody like the land bank.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is an asset now. They let me buy an asset undervalued. So I bought something that I could sell on the open market for $100K. I could sell that property as is for $100K, but I bought it for 40. What I'm doing now to actually get financing, private financing, is I'm leveraging the property. So essentially, I'm taking the property and they're applying a mortgage to this property, and they're giving me $100,000.
I was just about to ask that. So when you leverage it,
Wait, who's
it's not
giving you the bank is,
Yeah, I'm
or are
lost
you
on
doing
that.
private things?
Oh,
Like,
A private funder. So here's like, this is,
okay, so hard money is this? Or,
I mean, I'm at 12% on the loan, right? And there's a cost of originating the loan of like $4,500, right? It's some costs that go into it. So I don't think it's all that hard money. It's another one in the waiting room. I don't think it's a crazy ask for $100,000. I think it's probably costing me about 12% monthly and about $7K to originate the loan, right? But they didn't even look at my credit, right? Like this 100K is coming off of the strength of this property, this 40K property, right? There's another one in the waiting room. So this 100K is coming from the strength of this property, and I used a home equity line of credit on my condo that I have here in Chicago for the 40K. Right.
That's what I was going to ask you, Larry. If you use a HELOC loan.
Yep.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Yep. So I used the HELOC on my condo to buy the 40K property from the land bank, and now I'm leveraging that property to get this 100K from this private lender to do all of the renovations to it.
So you're like flat out OPM other people's money. You haven't put your money down.
I got it to
that's
about
the play right there.
I got it to about 13K, 15K. I'm probably about 15 to 20K in.
20K in.
Yeah.
So who's the buyer
And
at
that was
the end?
that's just permit money, like.
That's permit, that's initial construction. All the projects you've seen me do thus far, like to get it stripped down to the studs, all of that, the permitting, the architectural drawings, all that stuff,
100.
about 20K in at this point. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So these neighborhoods, they already have people living in them, right? It's
Mhm.
not just like a block of.
I mean, honestly, the crib next, you saw when you came over there, the crib across from mine, they took the whole freaking top off that thing and they about to build it up to a 3-story. Like, there's a ton of development in that area.
Yeah, could you pull up the Google Maps and just show these boys where your property is?
Yeah, there's a ton of development in this area.
But there's people already like in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I drove over there. You know, I wasn't slowing down. Alright, so I ain't gonna act like it's.
Well, it's like, is it
It's
gonna
not-
be a rental
it's
or
not-
somebody's
it's
gonna
not
come
East
in and like
Summer
buy
Park, it's West
the
Summer Park.
Is this what
property?
you call private funding? That 100 right here.
Yep, that's it. So honestly, look, I ain't never. The wire hit my account. I'm like, wow, y'all really just.
Because the thing about it is, right, because like it has nothing to do with his credit score. Because at the end of the day, it's good business for them.
Yeah.
Because if the property, if let's say LG trying to run off the property's like theirs, right? So they're going to they see it as all right. The worst case scenario is that we own this property now, and it still has it has the permits and everything. If we wanted to, we could still get our money back because we own the property. So when you take any OPM, whether you're doing hard money lenders, private lenders, the worst case for a lender is that they get the property and now they have to do the work. The best case is that they get their 11-12%.
Right.
All right, so it's a win-win for them. It's better than putting their money in the stock market.
I mean, look, they getting a killing. They getting a killing.
And they get money on
On the origination.
on origination, and every time you come out, you can go into
this. I'm just showing where it is, and just to orient everybody kind of where I purchased. This is like West Humboldt Park. But they literally got an Amazon fulfillment center like right here. And then they got a whole other kind of big project coming on right here. And then they also got like this Chicago police facility or something. This is the Menards I hit. It's like right there. So it kind of worked out perfect. And I'm only driving about like 10 minutes from my crib over here by United Center.
That's like 10 for me, bro.
You see what I'm saying?
Hey, Larry, did you use the FHA loan for this, or what type of composite loan, or what type of loan did you use for this?
Nah, man. I went to it's a private lender, man. You know, essentially the agreement that we went into is 12%. So I got $1,100 payment every month. That's me holding the bag, right? But they giving me $100K, and they just leveraging that property, right? They just leveraging the value of that property to ensure it's a collateralized loan on their part. So no FHA, they didn't pull my credit, nothing like that. I just had dudes show up one day. I went online, I looked up like Chicago renovation loans. Cause the first person I hit up, they was talking crazy, just predatory. I'll get back to them. But dude just showed up, pulled up in his Tesla. I showed him the property. I said, bro, I didn't got it this far. I acquired the property from the land bank. I got this whole thing gutted out. I want to do this. He looked at me dead in my face. He's like, you the type of person I like to work with. You know what I mean? You gonna drive this thing. You gotta be over here. It's gonna be on you to make sure this you succeed. You the mothership. You make sure that you are a steward of your money, but you got a winner. And I want to work with you, right? And when somebody come over like that, and you feel like they on the same team, it's like, okay, this is the type of person I want to work with. They wasn't predatory with it. They got their fair money. You know what I mean? So they get $4,500 to originate the loan. That's $4,500. Imagine from their standpoint. Okay, what can you do with my $100,000? Well, I can get you $5,000 up front. I can get you an $1,100 payment for the next 4 or 5 months while they get done renovating this thing. And if they don't pay you back, we'll just take the property. That's a good use of $100K if you got $100K. You know what I mean?
How can you be a lender?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
The cash flow.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Hey,
saying.
Larry, did they have a penalty? My bad, I didn't mean to cut into you.
You all good?
This guy I seen is like, he's pretty straight up, because I've heard some war stories about
Right.
him too. But did he give you any limitations on paying it up early, or like I can get it done early, or is it just give me my $100K plus, you know, my monthly payments until it's done and we squared? Like, or and also, did he just cut the check for $100K off the top, or did you get 25% now based on 30% completion? Like, how did that all shake out?
Really good question. So I've been to Chicago title twice in the past like month and a half. Once to close with the Chicago Land Bank, and then once to close with the lender. Because what the lender is doing is they're originating a mortgage on this property, right? So they're actually originating. So the same way you kind of close, I close with the lender. So it's a lot of legal paperwork there. But the things that I think about is that if I want to extend it past the 6 month length, it's going to be a 1% penalty to do so. The initial payment that I got was $35,000 minus all of the origination fees. So it actually came out to about like $29K wire hitting my account. And then there's $65,000 left in the reserves or in the escrow account. And the only way I can get to that $65K is once I get done framing, right? So that's the next step in the process they want to see. Once I get it framed up, they're going to release that $65K, and then I'm going to pay everybody else to come do it and finish it out.
Gotcha. Right on. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Hey, peace, baby.
Yeah.
Yo, peace. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Forgive me for hopping on late. I'm kind of running around today, but I'm happy to be a part of the conversation. I don't want to be selfish by asking this, but would love to just kind of get like a top line of, you know, kind of the purpose of the conversation, which I've covered so far, just so I'm kind of grounded in the conversation. I want to be actively engaged. So if somebody could just kind of be like a quick minute on like what's been established and where we're at, it'll be really helpful.
Yeah. we bounced around a little bit, but the core premise is to talk about utilizing the Chicago Land Bank to find real estate investment opportunities. There's a lot of red tape as you work with the Chicago Land Bank, but their purpose is really to beautify neighborhoods. And for me, it gave me an opportunity to acquire a property at a low cost and leverage that to, I'm looking at a profit potential of somewhere between 100K or so, right? So, we talked about some of the process of the hoops to jump to of acquiring property with the Chicago Land Bank. We talked a little bit about the permit process and some of the things you do there. I showed the costs thus far of the projects and how much it actually is going to take and work to get it done. And then now we're kind of talking a little bit more about the finance piece. And then we'll probably kind of just talk about the construction portion of it as well. But I'm kind of just opening up the field, whoever got questions and stuff. If you got things, definitely don't feel free to ask whatever.
Yeah,
Is the ultimate goal to equip us with this knowledge and information for us to do this individually, or is this more of a cooperative economics play?
Choose your own adventure, bro.
Man, I mean,
yeah, I think initially, right, it's just it's really just to acquire the information, right? I think we gotta have a crawl, walk, run approach. I think the crawl is just everybody being aware that these properties exist and why they exist. So LG just explained how he's went through the process, so far. But what we talked about initially was why the Cook County Land Bank exists in the first place. So a lot of properties on the south and west sides, we see a ton of lots, right? We see a ton of dilapidated homes. Why is that? Well, a portion of it is underinvestment, but other portion is that when people pass, when people move to the south and they have these assets, they no longer are paying the taxes on these assets. So after a certain amount of years, Cook County will essentially repossess a home. Once they repossess that home, they'll put it into auction. Once they put it into auction, they'll allow people to bid on those properties for 3 years. In a neighborhood like Fulton Market, if a property goes to auction, it probably won't even go to auction, right? They want somebody getting that property before it even hits auction. But if it does hit auction, whoever gets that property is going to have to pay all those taxes off. Once you own, the Cook County they don't tax people, they tax deeds. So once somebody owns a deed, they now are responsible for everything that's owed on that deed. So it can be taxes, it can be utility bills, it can be a lien from a contractor that did work in 1995, right? So what the Cook County Land Bank was put in place was to beautify the south and the west sides, where there was a lot of these properties that were delinquent from a tax perspective, to clear them of their tax burdens, to allow people to then be able to now purchase these properties where the economics make sense for people to be able to either buy a property to live in or buy a property as an investment property. So that's essentially why the land bank exists. And then now we're teaching, what we're trying to do is just explain, okay, how can I acquire a property off of the land bank? Most properties, so it's residential, it's commercial, and it's land. I would say everything's around 10 to 30K, 10 to 40K.
Yep, 10 to 40K.
Theirs was probably on the high end. Mm-hmm. But it all depends on different factors, right? The neighborhood, the commercial space, the lot, everything is about, that goes into the deal. But then you can go on the land bank website, and just like a Zillow, you can just see properties for sale. Once you see the properties for sale, they have a certain amount of time frame for you to be able to put a bid in. And similar to an RFP like we do in our day jobs, you got to be able to put a sexy application in order to secure the property, because there's other potential bidders as well.
I think a question. Oh, sorry.
No, you good. I'm
Is
done.
that good, T?
You good, T? Y'all caught up?
Yeah,
Cool.
good.
All
So
good, man. Appreciate it, fellas. Thank you.
So not to divert the conversation at all, but just thinking out loud after hearing this question and letting me process it. You jumped in on this 100K, and obviously the walk before you run. I'm totally with that. The question I have though is, what would it look like if people were peaking in on this experience on a continuous basis? Because I think some of us for sure have 10K, right? I don't necessarily have 40, but I could drop 10, right? So then what if it was we get that 10% instead of you going to a hard money lender? What would the process be for building out something where we could be that kind of consortium for these type of projects for each other or for somebody who already knows the way?
I mean,
Because 10% is pretty good.
No, so I know we talked about this before, and honestly, let me just show y'all the numbers. Just to kind of like, you know, I'm gonna continue to work this thing and try, but like these is like real numbers. These just sold. A lot of these sold in like August and shit like that. So like this is like, I'm 905. This is 947 North Carlisle, and it sold for 325.
Right, so those are like on the same block too, right?
And mine is a 3.2.
Yeah, you know, so that, you know, there's not a lot of land, right? There's not a lot of single family
What's the
homes.
square footage, right?
So from
Well,
that
that's what I'm saying,
perspective,
from the
right?
idea of like, if somebody finds a keeper or somebody has the process, right? We
Yeah.
all have to be general contractors. We don't all have to, you know what I'm saying? Especially to start.
100%.
Like, if you know that a part of your process, even as somebody who's experienced, is going to cost you 100K plus origination plus whatever else. Like, I don't know how we can mirror that process in a way that like legally makes sense. But like, I'm just trying to think out loud around that. Because like,
the group economics play is there. I think that it's just about us being able to, you know, understand that these deals make sense and then move forward in that with intention, right? So if that's coming under an LLC, we all in there with the cash, right? So I think there's opportunities there for sure. You know, it's just about having the liquid cash to be able to move it.
yeah.
This is Carlo. This is 325. So like, I mean, honestly, so this is the joint right up the street, right? So I put in 15 or 20 to get it to the point where I acquired the property and I'm in a construction phase now, and I got this loan, right? So I'm 20K in my money, but I'm about to be 100K in plus 40K in HELOC in on somebody else's money. So I'm looking at about 160, right? I probably will run the tab up to closer to 180 in total. If I can sell for anywhere between 280 and 300, then that's 100K. And now I'm using other people's money, so it's less stressful, honestly. That shit is really stressful to hold that bag early on, you know? But this is days on market is 8 days. And this sold 9/8/23. I mean, I do feel like it's maybe I just stumbled on the one, and maybe mine don't go with, but this shit just sold. So I mean, let me talk a little bit more about this. Like at this point, I'm just trying to protect my margins, because honestly, everybody I interact with, all subcontractors, you gotta look them in the face and be like, I feel like people always trying to look at your money and want a piece of you. Like people just run it up, like. So I'm just trying to do my best to protect the margin now, and like really kind of put the play together, because that's like. And now I'm even thinking about getting my own real estate license. You know what I mean? Because a real estate agent is gonna get 3% of the sale. 3%, that's 10K. So if I go get my own real estate license, I could put 10K back into the deal. You know what I mean? Or, you know what I mean?
Well, I think the same is true when you talk about like getting a license. Some licenses are way harder than others, right? But like, I think that the idea of like, I mean, again, this is a dream world a little bit, but like, if it was, we start Healing LLC or whatever it is instead of Chicago Title Company, right? Which is what he used. And, you know, so-and-so is the inspector, real estate, general contractor, and then we all are in 10K. Or 15 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean the group of economics is there, right? Because there's other properties, right? There's bigger properties, right? I think LG was looking at like single family, but the multifamily play is there too.
Yeah.
Multifamily play just requires more. It just requires more cash on hand, right?
For sure.
So it's all there, and I think it's really just understanding the process. And then if we all do it individually, and then we all got 100K bags that we now try to move with, and now we got 4. You know what I'm saying? So I think it just really is just about the knowledge piece to it right now. Yeah, all that's gonna be there, and I think the collective conversation, right? I think T's in the waiting room. He may have to log off. So I think that the information is critical because it allows us to now move with intention and actually have the conversation about what would it look like for us to move as a collective. If we do that moving forward.
Yeah. And let me just kind of explain where I am today, and then we kind of open it up for discussion. So I got through demo, and I just had a guy out today to help me on the framing piece. Now my neighbor has been a godsend. He actually applied for the property, so he was one of the people that I was applying against. But he's let me use electricity. He helped me take the structure down in the back, and he invited me over to a little cookout on a Sunday, and I'm just kind of over there working and stuff. And all of these cats is Mexican, right? I kind of go, and he like, yo, you want to play? I'm like, cool. I end up sitting down, and it's one of his cousins speak perfect English and everything. He like, yo, I got 5 buildings that I've done. I've done this GC thing, and that's what I needed. And then I'm just kind of stressing out this week and stuff like that. Like a ton of stuff kind of went on with the bank and them holding up money and all that stuff. And I didn't know this framing thing because some people telling me I got to take all of the floors out. Some people give me 10K, somebody gave me 20K, and I'm like, bro, can you just come and like look at it? And same thing, I got my man a cup of coffee on the way when he showed up 8:30 this morning, walked through it, and he like, look, I'll get it done for you for 15, frame all of this and stuff like that. And honestly, that's just been a godsend. So I'm gonna start framing next weekend. I got the masonry guy coming out next weekend, taking the tree down. He gonna take all this the skim coat. He basically rocks and all the stone structural stuff.
The bricklaying.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
He gonna put all of the bricks on the side, make it look real nice.
Okay.
Get the stone together in the front, get that looking real nice, and then from there, after I'm framed up,
what's framing?
That's like all of the wood structures, 2x4s, building it out so everything's supported. So it's really about to get built up over this next week. Like,
hey, Larry, are you still in the budget, like the first disbursement, or are you open with the frame?
I mean, so I need framing to get complete so I can get to the other disbursement that's in the escrow. So I got about 30K that I got in on a wire. It's gonna take me half to get the framing started. And then it's gonna take half to get the masonry started. So that's about about 15K, right? So I'm just trying to manage that the 30K disbursement I got now and just be smart in getting people started. You know what I mean?
No, that's real. Did you find your guy that did framing off the website, or can you just bring in somebody to just kind of do that, or does that have to be like?
Yeah, man. Honestly, like I was saying, like I found him because I got invited to my neighbor's cookout, man, and he was just over there, and it was just kind of a fortuitous encounter. He said, "Yeah, I've done a lot of these before." He showed me everything, and he said, "I got a team of framers," and then this team of framers was over there. I'm speaking a little Spanish with him. You know what I mean?
So a framer, you don't have to have a license.
It's all under my GC license.
I mean, your GC license, you can do framing, you can do drywall.
Yep, all of that stuff.
It's just the masonry, electrical, and HVAC that have to be
and
plumbing that have to be licensed.
Mm-hmm. Those are the only ones that got to be licensed. Everything else you do under your GC license. And that's where you could kind of manage your margins.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then he put me on to something else that's even crazier. If you do development in these enterprise zones, you actually get tax exempt status.
Opportunity zone.
Because now I'm buying all my materials tax exempt.
Really?
So now my wood is tax exempt. The new power tools I buy is tax exempt. All materials. Anything that's going, actually not power tools, but anything that's going to stay in the home. Windows is tax exempt. Everything, all materials is now flooring is tax exempt. So I'm at Home Depot. You 10%. You say whatever tax is, what, 7%?
And this is something that you're going to get back in your taxes when you file. You're paying taxes up front.
I think they do it at the store, maybe.
You mean the register? You
At
just
the
show
register.
them the card, right?
Yeah, I think at the register they
You
take
show
the taxes
them, you
off.
show them your GC license, and then you tell them that you're doing this work in opportunity zone.
Now, I think you get a tax exempt code or ID from the state. I got to look into it because he just told me today. But I think you
Okay.
get a tax exempt code or something. They type that in, and it's kind of like a, you know what I mean?
Huh?
So now I'm kind of looking at it like, okay, that's nice because I need that, you know.
That's a lot of money.
But that's where I am today. I mean, my hope is that I can get it framed up by the end of this month and have all of the other subcontractors through November, and then, you know, by the time December hit, it's looking like a full livable crib, you know.
Yeah.
So
Could you talk through the
oh, the other thing is demo court. This is another thing.
Yeah, talk through that.
So I'm actually representing this property in demo court. So demo court is where all of these properties go when they might be demolished, because we might just, you know what I mean? And it has all these vacancies and all these violations and all this stuff. I have to show that I'm clearing all of these violations, but that's kind of, that'll happen at the same time I'm doing all my inspections of the framing. When the inspector comes out for the framing, he'll say, okay, just submit this into demo court. And the lady I've been working with, she'll submit it and clear all of those things for those violations.
Yeah, could you talk through the inspections and how you can't move on to another side of the project before the inspection come in, and how that can lead to like delays?
Basically, I mean, they looking like 2 to 3 weeks out on the inspection. I got my electrician in there on Monday, and I need the inspector to come out probably early next week before I can even have electrical kind of coming in. So it's like this whole, you get it done, and then you need inspector to come. And it might be 1 to 2 weeks, and that's out of my control, you know? You can get stuff done as quick as possible, but it's out of your control at that point. But I mean, you know, I'm hoping to get it done and all kind of closed up by December, and it's looking like a full property, you know? And then I'm gonna put it on the market, and I'm gonna just look to try to sell. I'll probably put it on the market. I'm cool with putting it up for like $290. If I'm all in for like $170, I'll put it up for $290. I'll leave you a little margin on the top. You know what I mean? Why not? At these rates, $290. Worst case, shit, $270. For real? You know, I don't want to give up too much of my margin, but why not?
You got the wiggle room.
You got the wiggle room. You know what I mean?
So all in is 160. Or around there.
About 160.
Yeah.
Worst comes to worst, you can't
It's a lot of
sell.
work.
You could refinance.
Worst case scenario, I'll refinance, and then I'll put Chicago Housing Authority people in there, and they'll pay me automatic payment every month, $2,000. That's enough to cover the mortgage on 160.
What do you refinance? Worst case scenario, you refinance, take 100, pay back the lender, then just collect on rent.
So refinancing, I think it would appraise for
Or is that
$320.
cash out refi?
Cash out refi, yep.
So you can pay off your debts,
Pay off all my debts. You know what I mean?
and then he'll have to, he'll have a mortgage on his head.
Mm-hmm. It'll be a mortgage for like 160. But I could, I think I could clear that with Chicago Housing Authority, worst case scenario.
So it's a win-win, right? From that perspective,
Yeah,
right? Because just thinking of it in a worst case scenario term.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm looking at the Redfin, estimate, whatever their algorithm is for it. 207 to 246. And I don't think they know that you're rehabbing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
As is.
I think that's as is.
Right.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Would you mind showing their videos?
Yeah.
Hey Larry, you said you sold it at 270. How much are you walking away with?
Honestly, so I'm assuming I'll be in at about 170. I'll call it 170. But I honestly feel like I could probably get away with only spending like 180. I mean, I could probably get away with spending like 160. Best case scenario. Right? So 160 minus 320, or 320 minus 160, If I sell for 320, that's 160. You know what I mean? But taxes, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, are there any taxes on that transaction?
Yeah. I'm gonna have to try
City
to find
and
a
state and federal, or just city and
protect
state?
my neck, man. I mean, I was talking to Notes about this. I gotta find a strategy to kind of protect from Uncle Sam. You know, one way is I can reinvest back into real estate, right?
I think it's like a 30 to 60 day.
90.
Or is it 30?
90 days.
Mm-hmm.
But you gotta buy something quick.
Right. So, but I mean, you know, worst case scenario, you capital gains tax 120,
And it's going to your LLC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if you spend it, I'm not like, a professional, but if you spend it under your LLC, then it's not taxable anymore.
Right.
Because they tax profit, they don't tax expenses.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to turn that around into another project,
You could.
yeah.
Would you have more than that 60, 90 days or no?
I thought it was annual, like on an annual basis, but yeah, there may be more to it. That's why I said, I'm not a tax advisor.
But I mean, you know, the reality is for a side job or like a side project to be able to come out with 100K.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not many, and I've been working.
Really good. That sounds really good.
You know, I've been working a lot. You know,
Bro,
but
the fact that he was able to acquire it in cash for 40,000 automatically makes this a win, in my opinion.
right.
When it was 40,000 with the HELOC, because you didn't put 40 down, right?
I just use my HELOC. Yeah.
So it was 40 and HELOC 1250 and
Cash out of my pocket.
Yeah.
12, 15, cash out of my pocket.
Yeah, that's not impossible, man. That's
Yep, 'cause
but I
the,
don't have a HELOC.
No, that's
The land bank owns.
See, what's up? I see you raise your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just here, man, just soaking up some game, and I think the question that comes to mind for me is how repeatable is this process?
See, I was
And
saying,
also like
yeah.
also like how repeatable is it? But where do you max out before you feel over leveraged, right? Where you feel like is that really just a matter of like how much cash flow you got access to?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. I mean, me personally, I look at this, and if I get this one, I think I'd be a fool to not try again next year. You know what I mean? I feel like I gotta try again next year. If this one really gone, now I think I would be a little bit nervous putting in, you know, anything that would put me over my head for the next one. Like multifamily properties, that's when you get into numbers like 600, 700. You know, you would want to evaluate for that, but you might be investing like 2 to 3. I think it would get scary, but if I have a process in place, it's less scary. You know.
What are you liable for? What are you on the hook for? If everything went wrong, what are you on the hook for?
Shit, everything. I gotta at least get that 40K back, because then I need my condo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That HELOC is the scariest one.
Yeah.
The
So I
HELOC
think
is the scariest one.
that kind of thing, in terms of leverage, is down to your personal preference. But I would say you gotta have. If it was me, I would have to have 40K on hand if I wanted to take out 40K from your house, from finance.
Yeah.
But if I could put 10K down and get that 40K, that's
Right.
great. But if I know I got 40K on hand just in case if everything went wrong on this thing, I can get out from under it if I needed to.
Right. I ain't gonna lie, honestly, it got down to some scary hours though. Like honestly, until this money was coming up, I mean, you start to get to scary hours. Like I was like, I just can't touch that Nvidia. Like it was a few things in my portfolio I wasn't gonna touch, but I did sell some stock now. You know what I mean? I sold some stock. Like I'm moving assets around. Like around August, September, before I really kind of got that private funding, before that wire hit, it's kind of scary hours because you holding the bag. I mean. And you garbage dumpster doing pay this, pay that. So it's not for the faint of hearts.
Honestly, I mean, I didn't even think about leveraging the asset itself through a private lender, because that does protect you at some level. It just makes carrying the load a lot easier. So I think it's really just understanding the comps of the neighborhood and what you really buying. So even though if a private lender even wants the like funding, right?
Right.
Like that's kind of too, right? It's like understanding, like, all right, I can get control of this asset, but somebody else land on this asset also help me to the finish line.
Most definitely.
Yeah, one thing I recommend is just, I'm just doing it now, like looking up, to T's question, how repeatable is this process? There's a big tax burden when you sell a property, man, and you make $100,000 on it.
Mm-hmm.
In order for you to mitigate those taxes, you got to do what they call a 1031 exchange. So essentially, within 90 days, like we were just talking about, you got to buy another property. It's actually within 180 days. So is that 190?
Yeah.
Yeah. Within 45 days, you gotta identify another property to buy, and you got to be able to show proof of that.
Yeah.
And you can't touch a single dollar of the profits of the property. If you do, then the entire amount could be taxable. Right, so like there's a lot of intricacies there. Right now, is there anything wrong with paying? Is there other ways to mitigate taxes? 100%. Right, like if you're a tax professional, so now that Larry's a GC, he can essentially say he's a tax professional. There's a certain amount of hours that he's gonna have to say that he's gonna have to prove if he ever gets audited that he's a tax professional. But there's a good chance if he's taking properties from rehab to close that he can prove that, right? I think it's 150. Don't quote me on that. I don't know. But so there's ways to mitigate taxes, right? But that's the one thing that you want to be aware of is, and you want to factor that is, when you're getting a lump sum payment of $100,000, you got to pay taxes on that, or you got to have a way to get out of those taxes. But you can.
Is that considered like capital gains?
Yes, exactly. That's it's taxed like capital gains tax. So it's taxed based off of your income threshold.
So like, how long does that period last? Because obviously, like the long play here is to build equity and to buy a property, it grows, and for you to be able to have that cash. So like, how long before you can actually like cash out on your investment before you face any tax penalties?
So I mean the goal, right? Like with anything tax related, they offer you tax write-offs essentially. So like Amazon, for example, Amazon for years didn't pay taxes because they kept investing into their business. I think they paid taxes for the first time 3-4 years ago, right? The goal is that the government's playing the long game. They know that if you keep making a pot bigger and bigger, eventually it's going to get too big for you to be able to mitigate all of it. So they'll allow you to continue to rinse and repeat the process, but like it's a good problem, right? Like if you got 100,000 and you keep doing this process, and that 100,000 now you double that 100,000 into a bigger deal. So now instead of you making 100K, now you make 500K on a multifamily, and then you like, man, there's no way I gotta pull out of this bread, right? So now you just pay taxes on that 500K. So eventually they're gonna get their money from you. Let me not say that, man. There's a lot of ways around that actually, low key. But there's you can rinse and repeat the process as long as you can. You just always have to have a property, and if I understand it right, you gotta it has to elevate. So you can't buy a property low. You gotta buy something bigger, if that makes sense.
I like it because in the back of my mind, like once you get in the game, it almost reinforces positive behavior.
100%. So you got it exactly. It doesn't because you don't want to spend it, right? You don't want to when you can use that money tax free to do something else. You want to continue to do it, But once again, then you start to get into other factors, right? Now that's how people get over leverage, right? Because they said, oh, I gotta use this property to get something bigger. It doesn't sell, and then they lose everything. So there's risk and reward within everything, but it does reinforce a positive behavior around. You got 180 days to buy another property. If you don't, you're paying taxes on that thing. And if you touch any of that money, there's a potential they can audit you and they can make you pay all of it.
How much are y'all paying attention to like
interest rates?
Like national economic factors versus like local opportunity when you look at acquiring a property? Because I feel like there are a lot of nuances that are going to be specific to Chicago versus what's happening in the global market.
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. I think that the way Larry said it was dope, right? I think, depending on how greedy you want to get, we were in a seller's market for a very long time. So yeah, like LG could look at that and say, I'm selling for 325. He put that thing at 325, he doesn't sell. Is the property not sellable, or does he just want too much money? You feel me? So him saying like, yo, all right, I'll sell at 270, you still see that there's still profit and there's still profit potential in that deal. It's just when people start to get over leverage and they have to sell at a certain price point that you get in trouble, because right now if you got bread, ain't no better time than to buy than right now, right? Because there's a lot of leverage you have as a buyer if you got bread. So I don't know if that answers your question, but like I do think that we're getting into scary hours. Like I do think that like by next winter, I think the market, I think overall, this is just my personal opinion. I think there's going to be an economic downturn, and especially with the wars and stuff. Like I just think it's going to hit. And but when that happens, like what's the rich cat in Nebraska, the billionaire? Warren Buffett says like when everybody gets scared financially, that means things are going to sell. Mm-hmm. So it's always like there's always somebody winning. You feel me?
I think it's saying is whenever the tide recedes, you see who wasn't wearing pants.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that's the thing. Like I think that there's going to be opportunities, right? And I think as long as the deal makes sense and the numbers make sense, there's always going to be room for opportunity. That's why, like at the beginning of this process, we were going through the SOW, and we were like really like, yo, how'd you get those numbers? Like, because you want to be able to factor in and make sure that the numbers make sense and this deal is a good deal. But that's why I like the Chicago Land Bank, because where else you coming across $10,000 properties?
Yeah. I mean, I hear you though on the macro versus the micro, but at times it's like you won't make a move if you look at the macro kind of level headlines and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like coming into this, man, this is not for the faint of hearts. Like this investment stuff, it's like you got to take a risk if you want like reward to this level. So I do feel like, yeah, maybe interest rates honestly stay super high and I can't find a buyer for this thing. I'm happy that I have enough margin in it to be like, okay, I could drop it to 260 worst case scenario. You know what I mean?
I think that's the main takeaway is you got to figure out what you want your margin to be. And you essentially want a buffer that's going to protect you from any, external events that can impact your margin.
What do they mean by $0 in here?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Hold on, man. Hey, I've been on a $0 deal. Hold on, Jack. So at the event, everything in the Austin neighborhood is half off. So to the end of the year, everything that they have a surplus in the Austin neighborhood, and everything is half off.
Man, this North Lawndale, bro. North Lawndale seems like it's going crazy.
It's going to crack, right? Because I love North Lawndale personally. I was sitting with lunch. I had lunch with a cat. I think he's a private equity guy. The family that the family office that he does private equity for, they turned $250 million into $2 billion, and they are like local. They are looking specifically at only investments in the North Lawndale neighborhood with the opportunity zones. Like they're trying to buy businesses and move them to North Lawndale. The access that North Lawndale has to like the medical district. There's a lot of like value. I like North Lawndale a lot. Like I've been spending time.
North Lawndale is really almost an extension of the medical district.
It really is right there. It's right there, bro. I like North Lawndale a lot for sure. It's you don't want to stay at the stop signs too long out there. It's not too bad.
Let me get honestly, bro. Like when I first pulled up to that property at Karlov, though, the boys was definitely holding it down on that corner. You know what I mean?
It was outside.
I feel like the more I come there, though, the more I think they've kind of developed some respect. I'm not like gonna be sitting there trusting everybody that's seeing stuff like that. But I'll stop and have a conversation and look at a man to man and be like, yo, this is what I'm doing.
For sure.
Like, which I think in some ways they see somebody like me coming into that neighborhood and they respect that. You know what I mean?
I feel like none of us are goofies, right? So like, real recognize real. You know, we come into the neighborhood. We trying to bless the neighborhood. Right. I feel like it's always going to be love. Nobody, you know, we're moving it with that level, with that level of respect. Mm-hmm. You know, one thing I think, you know, from a micro perspective, to your point, you know, with the amount of Venezuelans and Latin people that are coming to the city. A lot of them, they can't go and rent even when they get on their feet. They're not going to be able to go through normal means of renting. Mm-hmm. So what I think is a lot of like Spanish people, they're going to be buying a lot of properties because they know they're going to be able to charge them, you know, more for those for rent, right? And you know, multifamilies in areas that have big Latin communities. I like that play, you know, for real, because these people they gonna get on their feet. They grind. They come here to work, bro. Yeah. They gonna get on their feet, and when they do, people are gonna be trying to put them in housing. You know what I'm saying? And they're gonna pay cash, and they gonna pay on time because they ain't got nothing else. They got no leverage. They can't go to the CHA. They can't go to the housing authority. They ain't got nothing like that. They gotta pay, and they gotta pay more than normal people because they don't have, you know, the normal things that we have as citizens. So it's something to think about from a micro perspective. Yeah. And like LG's neighborhoods, like West Humble Park, you know, they're all through Austin now, man. Mm-hmm. Austin is like for real, like little Mexico, man. That
whole block is a whole Latino block. Like honestly, hey, look. To me, you know, I felt really cool with that. You know what I mean?
Doubt. I appreciate it, man. They take care of neighborhoods.
They take care. They gonna take care of
their stuff, of each other.
Yeah.
What y'all seeing like down south? Because I feel like that's untapped potential, man. Like every time I go down there, I see so many like open vacant lots, like abandoned buildings. And I mean, I know it may be like a longer term play, but I'm assuming, based off of like demand, you probably can get something like low entry down there.
Yeah, I think Inglewood, man, with this adjacency to back of the yards, once again another like, you know, heavy Latino area. I spent time with a cop recently that I got tapped in with, who's heavily invested in back of the yards. They're doing a lot of investment out there. I like the West Side, bro. I don't know why, man. I just think it's so adjacent to like the West Loop. And like, I'm just more comfortable there, I personally think. And I think that a lot of the South Side is like, it's more competitive out there with like investments. But that's just my personal like investment opinion.
No, I'll co-sign that. Before I even bought my building initially, I was looking at South Side. I was looking at the South Side, and it was so inflated. Like it was damn near impossible to get anything like worth the real value. It was either I was gonna pay $500,000, $400,000, $500,000 for like stripped down something. It was essentially just like a shell of a house, or I was gonna have to like buy it somewhere where it was so far away, like the property value was just gonna stay depressed, like without any, you know, regardless of how good a shape it was in. So I think the advantage of the West Side, it has the transit. It's like transit rich in the sense of you have like everything from like orange to pink to blue to green line is right there, and it's so adjacent to like what Mo said. Downtown is 20 minutes from my house. You know what I'm saying? Like less than 20 if the train is like completely on time. That's just on the green line. It's probably quicker if I took the blue. But like the pink line, it was like 20 minutes from there. Anywhere from like that California, like Austin, or anywhere from like really California to almost like, what is it, Madison to Pelosi.
Pulaski.
But yeah, Pulaski. I agree. I think I just like centrally where the West Side sits, and adjacent to a lot of different like areas of the city. You can just get north or south or downtown, you know, much quicker. Versus, I feel like a lot of international buyers are also on the South Side because of the Obama Center and everything like that. Like it feels different. Like when you want to do something on that side.
What's the furthest west that you see? Like as far as property?
They go out to
they go all the way out Cook County. So it's Cook County land bank, which I didn't know. They in Maywood. They're in like the suburbs as well. It's all of Cook County. So that's the thing. What I love about.
That's what I grew up.
What about?
I mean,
Well, it may
man,
work.
Austin
Yeah.
has some beautiful blocks, man. I mean, it's it's got its problems, but like there's some like legacy blocks out there, man, where like there's just like gems out there. You know what I'm saying? And that it's huge.
Yeah, they done bought up everything in Humboldt Park. I'm going on in here now on the land bank. There's no orange in Humboldt Park.
I was gonna say, good
Oh,
thing
you
about
know,
Big One.
and they got Humboldt Park got a co-working space coming over there, so it's that Humboldt Park is about to change quickly.
Yeah, man.
Loyola,
You know,
man.
West Humboldt Park is gonna be the
Loyola
last
right there.
piece of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna take a little bit of time,
because you
like,
got
you
Oak
know,
Park, bro. That's one
That's what I
argument.
live. I live on Park.
Okay, you do. Man, that's one of the hottest suburbs in the city. You got West Loop, the hottest neighborhood in the city, and in the middle you have nothing but open lots. Like there's really not like there's really just it's almost all like North Lawndale has something crazy. Austin has something crazy with just open lots. So I feel like man, there's just it's like more of a blank canvas than the west side. I mean, sorry, than the south side.
Yeah.
But with everything, there's still like, and there's just some nice parks out there, bro. Like Garfield Park is nice as shit, bro.
Bro, I play golf at they got a Columbus Park that's in it's almost really West Garfield Park. Columbus Golf Course. It's like super nice. It's like cheap. Like you wouldn't even know it was there.
I'm super high on Garfield Park. Now you ain't gonna find nothing on the land bank in Garfield Park though.
Yeah, man. I'm surprised. I looked at it like it didn't look like honestly a few months ago back in April, like you had a few.
Yeah, a few.
They done bought all them joints up, man.
Yeah, it's on the up. I mean, that's something you got to get on auction, right? Which that's a whole different process, but
Yeah.
yeah, man. I appreciate y'all boys coming out, man. I know it was a lot of information, but I think Larry's been a resource for me, man, and I just wanted to give him the platform to be able to explain this to the dogs. I appreciate you, bro, because I feel like I got a better understanding of it now. I hadn't heard of the land bank until LG sent me a link. I didn't even know it existed, right? So hopefully, man, like I said, we can crawl, walk, run with this thing, and there'll be some opportunities that we can all like start to just pay attention to. I think another thing would be dope to come on site at some point, doing when you're doing the work, bro.
Yeah.
I think because it's just a whole like different ball game where we get to see it with our own eyes.
For sure.
And you recorded this session too, right?
Yeah. I got over here too. So
This is us, right?
yeah, Chicago land bank,
And that's
man.
the entry where I'll register and like start to see properties and stuff, right?
And I'm gonna put this out there too, like in the spirit of what you said, those crawl, walk, run.
Yeah.
Like I've never invested in real estate. I'm highly interested. You and Larry have a wealth of experience in the space, and I'm highly interested in the group economics play. If anybody else is, like I'm just putting that out there. Like I think it could be really dope for us to pull our resources together and just to kind of be guided through the process. So that's something I'm highly interested in. I think that's what like sparked my interest when y'all put this invite out there.
Yeah.
I was hoping that was going to be kind of a end goal of this conversation. So just want to put that intention out there, man.
Appreciate you, G. Yeah, I think it should be, man. I think we got to move with that level of intention, and like we got to talk about it first, right, before it could even exist. So I'm 100% down, man. There's like some projects, I think Larry and I talked about it. Like there's some big boy, like 4 unit. Everything is residential though. It's under 4 units, right? They don't have any commercial on there, right?
Nah.
So
they got some commercial, but not
not
commercial,
commercial,
like
apartments.
mixed use.
Not-
Right.
but like it'd be just like commercial, like buildings.
Right.
So yeah, man, these big boy projects are like, it's gonna take a lot of liquid cash. It's gonna take a lot of creative energy, and it's gonna take a lot of just like, boys wanting to really get their hands dirty, man. But like on the back end of that is a lot of bread, man. Because like another thing about the 1031 exchange, when somebody sells, they gotta buy.
Right.
So like, a lot of times, one of my boys got in a situation where he was like, he wasn't really a big fan of the property, but he was like, yo, I gotta purchase. So he went and purchased the property, right? So there's a lot of very motivated buyers, especially when you start to get into that, like, $800 to $1.2 million multifamily range.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you putting that out there, T.
I hear you though, T. I mean, my thing is, how do I keep driving this thing? And if we can build some apparatus and people can come on board, and there's been, I mean, real estate is usually a part of people's chapter that is rich. You know what I mean? Rich people usually have real estate as some part of that story. So I hear you. See, once I get from up under this one and then kind of start to put my head forward and looking at the next one, I'm looking forward to seeing what we can put together. You know?
For sure.
So.
No, Larry, I appreciate you, bro. This was even more clear. I mean, we've had conversations, just sidebar conversations about it too.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm definitely in the same space on collaborating and just really get my hands wet, right? And you make it real, just being in the thick of it. You know what I'm saying? It's inspiring, low key, like or high key, really. Just to know that you like in the thick of it. You know what I'm saying? Really in there, boots on the ground, because this shit is not for the faint of heart, like you said. You know what I'm saying? It does take a level of engagement and just commitment to the process. So, salute, bro. Appreciate you always being an open book to this type of information.
Sweat equity.
Most definitely. Yeah. All right, man. I'm gonna keep posting and keep it moving. So, I appreciate y'all for showing up, and we'll do this again, man. I think there's something here. We'll keep kind of pulling on this thread, man. See where we can go with it.